Here we are live. That's my name, and that is the Innotivity Institute, and that is the logo. Look at that. Here we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome, Innotivity Live. Today, as every Thursday, we are here to talk about what you need to say. Question, speak up. Say what you need to say. So, our guest today is Yoke van Dam, also known as the kenzugi queen. I'm going to ask her what she means by that, along with a whole bunch of other questions. We have a slight delay on Yoka's arrival, but she'll be here any second. In the meantime, I want to encourage you to register at this address, bit.ly/innotivity-live. Register at that address if you want to get any kind of reminders in future of this broadcast and who is going to be on each week. So I'm putting that into the chat. You would be able to then just click on that and you will, there it is, Innotivity Live, right? bit.ly Innotivity Live. There's two L's in there. That's not correct. So we're waiting for Yoka to come. I thought one good thing to do would be to remind you of why this topic has come up and been the source of the Innotivity Live for me. So let me tell you a brief story, and it goes like this. It was my 6th night in the hospital. I couldn't sleep. The right side of my jaw was still blown up to the size of my fist, and 3 different doctors couldn't tell me what was causing it or how to get rid of it. They knew it was an infection, and they knew it wasn't a long-term serious thing. They kept me in the hospital for 6 days. They pumped me with steroids, antibiotics, painkillers through an IV. Other than that, they said, just wait. And so I did. I waited a week. That was much of my January 2022. Watching people with hip replacements and heart attacks and broken faces from unexpected swoons move in and out of the beds around me. Why was I stuck there so much longer than people with more dangerous afflictions? But then as I sat alone in the dark in the little garden outside the hospital entry, running my hand over the grass's blade tips, pondering the meaning of all this, it came to me. What if the reason the doctors couldn't figure out the cause was that it wasn't medical or scientific? What if it was spiritual? What if the lump in my jaw was the result of something I wasn't saying? Something trapped in my communication that was making me sick. But what could it be? I mean, I've grown so much in the past couple of years. The lockdowns of COVID for me were like a cocoon that allowed me to emerge from a lifetime of expression suppression before that. During the pandemic, I gained confidence as a speaker and as a human being. But then I realized that everyone has things they aren't saying that they really need to. And when we don't say what we need to say, there's really ultimately only one reason, and that's fear. It might be fear of being judged, or fear of being heard too clearly, or fear of actually having to live up to what we promise in our speaking. Because everything we do in life begins with our speaking, whether it's speaking it out loud or just in our minds, silently. First we think it, right? Then we be it. And then we do it, hopefully, whether or not we say it with our voices in between. Now, they say there are only 5 basic emotions, and those are joy, sadness, disgust, anger, and fear. Now, notice something there immediately. 4 of the 5 are negative: sadness, disgust, anger, and fear. Negative emotions. Only 1 is positive and productive: joy. Now, the question I asked myself when I realized this is, are we as human beings so bad that 80% of our emotions are negative? Or is it that joy is so powerful that it can balance 4 times its weight in negativity? People simplify this. People like to say that there are only 2 things that motivate people: love and fear. Love and fear. Lots of people have pointed it out. Even John Lennon, yes, the Beatle. Look it up. There's a famous quote by him. In one song, Bruce Springsteen sings of a man who had on his right hand tattooed the word love and on his left hand the word fear. It's become a cliche, really. Where there is fear, they say, there is no love. And where there is love, there is no fear. They say that, but it's not actually true. Dr. Yelena Radulovic of Northwestern University has shown that the hormone oxytocin is the basis of both love and fear. And what I hear there is this: it's easier to transform fear into love than you think, because they're generated by the exact same thing. So, although I was not yet certain about the prescription for my jaw, the prescription for speaking up was clear: replace fear with love. Replace fear with love. Love for what you're saying, love for the people you're saying it to, love for yourself as the speaker. And as I thought through all this, I realized that what I have not been saying to people is that I can help. I can help. That's what I wasn't saying. So I started saying it, doing these broadcasts. You know, I realized that my knowledge and experience in creativity and innovation can help free you and other people to speak up and avoid becoming sick. So that's the freedom we all want, right? The freedom to overcome our fear and say what's needed. Not just say anything, right? I don't mean tell lies or complain or insult people, but I truly believe that deep in our spirits, none of us want to express any of those things, because those also come from fear. So what are you not saying that you need to say? What fear do you need to overcome to say it? What love do you need to embrace, and for whom? What is stopping you from speaking up? That's the question we're addressing here. And I'm here with Yoke van Dam, as I said. And Yoke, welcome.
Thank you
It
so
appears
much. It's awesome
it
to see
appears
you.
that well, it appears that's what's stopping you from saying what you need to say is your computer. Let's what happened here?
I think it's doomsday when the person that's coming through to speak on presentation skills is having a audio failure. So I was like, there's thunder and lightning outside. If I have to rely on using the inbound speaker and my microphone, you will not have a pleasant experience. So I had to make sure. So sorry that I'm late, Michael, but I'm here.
Well, it gave me an opportunity to expound on the origins of this program and why we're doing a broadcast about speaking up in the first place. So that's good. Um,
Wonderful.
so anyway, welcome. Uh,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to give you a little introduction to you, and then let's dive in, because we have only like about 2/3 of the time left that we had to start with. I'm now having my own little glitch. I'm looking for your bio that I have in front of me a minute ago, and here it is. Ready? Yoke van Dam has been in the persuasion. Hold on, watch this. Wait, this is really cool. Watch. Here we go. Yoke van Dam has been in the persuasion game for many years, since the age of 15, in fact, when she was selling pizza at her high school. And yes, I'm going to ask you about that, Yoke.
You
Since
bet.
then, her love affair with sales, influence, and persuasion only got stronger. Yoke worked in the sales trenches for the past 16 years as a sales trainer and behavioral coach. Today, she is called the kenzugi queen, and she helps leaders and teams step out in confidence and, yes, speak up. And when she's not doing any of that, you'll find her running on a field at the adventure boot camp, hiking up a mountain, or apparently drinking red wine. Okay, so having said all that, here's Yoke again. I probably should have shown everybody your face while I was reading your own bio. But
No problem.
tell us to start with, what's the Kintsugi Queen? What is that?
So, kenzugi is a Japanese art form, and I'm not sure if you've ever seen this, but it looks like this broken pot that they really beautifully put back together. So, what they do is the Japanese artists they actually take a form of gold and they're actually putting all of the pieces of the pot together and it creates another beautiful art piece. So my aim for using this metaphor with leaders and teams was to say you can actually transform something, a team that might be a little bit fractured. Teams, Michael, they go through the norming, storming, forming, performing stage. I'm doing training next week for a team and they keep on changing because a lady has just recently immigrated, another executive director joined, people fall pregnant and then they go on maternity leave. So it's not just teams that are dysfunctional, but teams keep on evolving and changing. And even with COVID, when people have been working from home and now some of them are going back in the office. So, how do you transform what you already have into something more beautiful? Even if it's not even in the same location, in the same office, you can be a really fully functional team that can get to that performing stage and do really well. So that's really what that metaphor is about.
And okay, great. So thank you for that. And I wonder if you could tell us a tip to start with, because I think one thing that I've learned, and I'm certainly wondering what you think of it, is I think all teams are dysfunctional. By nature, they are always falling out of function, and we always have to put attention to having them function. It's not something that like you just turn on autopilot, like we've got you functioning now, it's going to work great. Tomorrow something will go wrong. So what
That's
is the first tip you would give someone if they're dealing with communication in a team around how do you get the team to communicate freely and openly and not have any blocks against that?
So I just want to go back on what you were saying that all teams are dysfunctional. You have to be very careful with that because what I found when I started using this metaphor, people started saying to me, if you say to my team, Yuka, your team are dysfunctional, I'm going to immediately see it as an attack and say, hell no, Michael, how dare you tell me that we're dysfunctional? So people are not ever going to buy into the fact that they are not functional, but the whole thing which you're saying is the truth. Is like we can always grow, we can always become better, we can always be better performing. So it's really about whether someone is, some teams might be at 0, some might be at 3, some might be at 6, 8 or 10, but everyone wants to move forward to getting to that place, right? So your question around what is a tip for getting a team to communicate and to get rid of some of those blocks. So what I've seen is communication have changed a lot. So my husband's in the IT industry, and with them it was actually quite seamless to go online because with them they were always having meetings on Teams, and with them they don't even turn on their cameras, which I have a mini heart attack moment if people don't. But I've also learned to say that everyone is not going to turn on their cameras, right? So if you have to communicate with your teams and you're scared of those blocks, try to call people by their names. So if you're having a MS Teams meeting, I've been having these large meetings, and I had a client that I was coaching, and she said that the one extrovert kept on overriding the conversation, and because she's female, he was also like bringing it down a lot. And I said to her, what would the impact be on the rest of the team? So she's in the IT industry, if you also allow them to give input. And she said, well, how do I do that? Because what she was doing is she would just ask a open question to kind of like say, what do you guys think about this? And then there would be this dead quiet, and only this one person was only ever the one person that answered. While if you're actually directing the question to specific individuals and you're actually asking them specifically, you will actually see the introverts will start responding as well. So be okay with pauses, be okay with silence. And sometimes people might not want to actually speak up in an online meeting, but you could also encourage them with polling, getting into the chat box. There are various ways of getting engagement. So see what are the channels available to you. Some people, I originally thought, Michael, if people don't turn on their camera, that they're being mean as a facilitator. And later on, I realized it's bandwidth issues. People are working from home. Some of them literally only have so much data available. And then I started realizing if you actually checking your own communication style and you remain positive while you're communicating with them, asking open ended questions, allowing that silence, and maybe calling on specific people, suddenly you're starting to get positive communication back. But the moment you put out negative energy, you're pessimistic, people mirror that back to you. So I once literally went and said, okay, I'm just going to pretend that they are there, even if I don't see them, even if no one says anything. Every now and again, I would say, "Can you show a thumbs up? Can you put something in the chat box?" But most of the time, they were doing nothing. But by the end of it, they actually started warming up, and in their smaller groups, they were willing to communicate. So I've found, just in terms of the tip again, is a lot of people will not want to speak up in front of a bigger room, but once you put them into smaller groups, twos, threes, fives, they'll be willing to share there. And if you then have a spokesperson and they know that there is going to be a spokesperson and they know that person is, that person will then give feedback on behalf of that group. And then suddenly you actually start hearing so many more voices than just that one extrovert that's domineering the conversation.
That's what the mute button is for. Um, I totally agree with you. Like what I used to get very unhinged on Zoom when people would all be in the dark, and I always thought, it's we don't go into a meeting in public, with a shirt over our head like that and stick a name tag on there. That would be weird, right? But you're right. I mean, there's actually oops, I'm stuck here. The difference between data with a camera on and Zoom and with it off is radical, actually. And when I realized, especially in Africa, where people have bandwidth issues all the time, and a lot of people are on their phones, it really is a big issue. But one thing let me just pause here for a second, Yoke. I want to encourage everybody watching to please let us know you're there in the chat, in the comment. Just tell us who you are and what you're hoping to hear from Yoke. If you have any questions, and also if there's anything you are trying to say that you're not saying. There's, like I said in the opening part, there's a few reasons. They all amount to fear ultimately, right? Except for bandwidth, which is just fear of running out of data. But ultimately, most reasons we don't say the thing that really needs to be said is some kind of fear, right? Either it's fear of being heard, or fear of not being heard, or fear of actually having to live up to what we say we're going to do, or fear of just speaking at all. Like sometimes we don't know quite what it is, and we're afraid we're going to say the wrong thing because we don't know exactly what it is we are trying to say. There's so many reasons, but in the end, they amount to fear. So Yoke, as somebody who is and I really want to encourage anybody in the comments, please let us know you're there. When you're dealing with being a speaking coach sometimes, as well as leading groups and teams and stuff, what do you find is the number one fear that you've experienced that keeps people quiet?
People are scared of messing up. And what I've seen specifically with public speaking is people are very scared of losing their words. So they keep on thinking like, what if I forget my lines? What if I get stuck? So what I've done specifically, Michael, is I've experienced all of those fears myself. I once spoke at a Toastmasters competition many, many years ago. And in the middle of my speech, and in that context, 5 to 7 minutes, no notes, and they're very strict, and everyone's looking at you with these frowning faces. So, like a high stress environment. And in the middle of my speech, I literally lost where I was. And I just paused for a very long time, looked at the audience, and continued. And afterwards, someone said to me, "Wow, that pause was so effective." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I literally lost my lines." So after that experience, I now teach people what are your safety nets? So in my Power of Persuasion course that we're going to be doing in June, I specifically teach people how to use mind maps and notes. We also work on a lot of confidence hacks, how to overcome those fears. So we look at visualization is one of those areas. And if you want, I can share a little story that I share in my course as well on how to overcome that fear. How did I actually NLP myself to overcome the fear of hiking, and how is that applicable to speaking? But I see that we have Nakwanda. Sometimes I don't speak because I'm worried I'm wrong. Nakwanda, that's such a valuable point. Michael, I'm just going to elaborate on that. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
All right. So,
It's super okay
so
with me.
Nakwanda, it's always
Before
worth
you,
your while. So,
before you do though, Yoga, I want to just bookmark that hiking story because I want to come back to that. And it was part of your bio that you go on hikes when you're not working. So come back to that. But go ahead. Let's.
Nakwanda, I love what you're saying. Where you're saying sometimes you're worried that you're wrong. So, so is that in a meeting context, or is that for public speaking context? Do you maybe just want to elaborate in the chat box? One of my favorite authors and speakers, Celeste Headley, um, she specifically says that people on radio have realized that if you're not sure, rather say that you're not sure. Don't speak about something if you're not the authority about it. So rather go and check the information than make a point, and then people can question you about it. So maybe make sure about your facts and see what you know, what you can with confidence speak about, and speak about that. I'm saying Sipo Siping says, I was attracted by the prefix to watch because I love everything innovation. Awesome, Sipo.
Yeah, it's fantastic because just for those of you who don't understand the whole nature of this thing, is that we are using my expertise in innovation creativity. I've realized can be useful in actually helping people overcome their blocks in what they want to say because it's really the same thing. How do you become more creative? How do you become more able to just be free and easy with what you're saying? So I've been bringing in people like Yoka. Oh no, right there, Yoka. I've been bringing in people like Yoka who are experts in the field and really have some great things to input. So thank you, Sipo. Nakwanda, yes, it would be in public, but you don't have to do it. I'm just inviting you if you did want to come up and join us and get some live coaching. We've done it before, and it always works out really well, but it's okay if you don't want to. Part of the issue here, of course, is that we're dealing with people's fear of dealing with what they're saying. So if I could just add to what Yoka said as well about, Nakwanda's question, the short thing I would say, really short, is maybe you're wrong. So what? There's a distinction, I think, between saying something that's hurtful to people or being wrong in that way, or just saying something and you're not right about it. It's okay. 95% of innovations fail. Yoga is a very,
Yeah,
very professional person, and she was 5 minutes late for this broadcast because something went wrong. Things go wrong.
yeah. And Nakwanda, I just want to add, the more preparation you do, the easier it becomes and the more your fear actually disappears. So can you over prepare? Can you put so much information? Can you put so much effort that you actually outcare everyone else? Then you don't have to stress that you might be wrong. And if you have a growth mindset that you're willing to learn, if people ask questions and they kind of debating around what you're saying, say to them, well, we're all here to learn. So I value your input and thank you so much for bringing those insights. I've often found that in the training room, I learn a lot from the people in the room. So if you have a growth mindset and you're willing to learn and grow, you can always expand on what you're saying. Michael, you wanted to go back to a question.
I do. So Nakwanda's willing to come in, but I think we're running out of time. So I'm going to ask Nakwanda to come back next week at the same time. And Yoka, if you can join us, even though we'll have a different guest host. You can join us and actually help with Nakwanda's question in more depth, and we can get into that. But Nakwanda, I think right now we're running out of time. But yes, let's hear about the hiking story, and then I got one more question to wrap up with. At least.
So in 2010, no, 2009 December, I went to do the otter hiking trial, and for many years after high school, I played hockey, and something happened that I actually damaged my ligaments in my one foot. And whenever I went hiking, I would tell myself, "Oh no, the worst thing that can possibly happen is I might hurt my foot." So, when I studied NLP in 2012, I realized that what we say in our head, we're actually creating that picture in our mind. So, I was doing the otter hiking trail, and on day 4, it's quite a technical bit. You're actually hiking about 9 kilometers. You need to get to the Storms River crossing at low tide. So you get up at 4 or 5, you're hiking at a speed, you get there, you take your backpack, put it in a bag, and then you supposedly supposed to walk through the Storms River to the other side, and then you hike another almost 9 kilometers. And we were on our sprint on the way to the Storms River, and I know, like, oh, it's technical. And what did I say to myself? The worst thing that could possibly happen is if I hurt my foot today. So in my mind, I actually created the picture of me hurting my foot. And then on a straight piece of road, what happened? I sprained my ankle. And when I studied NLP, I was like, oh my goodness, I actually created that situation. So often when I teach people in my course, I say to them, before you go and do public speaking, you need to reframe your thoughts and say to yourself, I want to feel confident today. I'm going to be powerful. So I see Alison is there, and her metaphor is a falcon. And she was saying, I want to soar like a falcon. I want to be powerful. I want to be confident. I want to be strong. I want to look empowered. And what you do is you're actually creating the mental muscle in your brain. But what we tend to do is we tend to do the opposite and focus on the failures and the fear. So reframe your thoughts. And in my course, I'll actually teach you how to do a visualization so you actually get those specific results that you want. So, Michael, getting back to the hiking story, after doing the otter, my hiking has improved so much that in May we're going to go hiking in Greece, 12 to 15 kilometers a day for about 2 weeks. And what I did is now I say to myself as I'm walking, I have strong feet. I can do this. So I have the resilience and the power. And what has started happening, my friends joke about this. We did a hike in the Drakensberg a few years ago, and it was hectic. So it's like backpack, sleeping bag, tents, all of that. And it's like a hectic uphill. And in my mind, I was imagining, I was looking at the hill, there's like ups and downs. And I was just focusing on the downhill in the uphill. So I was like mind numbing myself to imagine that it's a downhill. And my friends said I was like sprinting up the mountain. They were like, Yoke, you were using NLP and you were just like moving up as if you're moving down. And I was like, oh my goodness. So that skill you can use in public speaking, as I've used in hiking, and it works.
So reframing really is the key tool you're bringing up again and again. It's just reframing the way you're thinking about things. So I'm going to ask you one last question, Yoke. We only have 2 minutes left, so you need to answer this very quickly. But like I said, if you come back next week, we'll give you a little bit of a slot. We can work with Naquanda, and maybe you might say a little bit more. But here's the question I'm going to ask you. What do you need to say that you have not been saying?
What do I need to say? I need to say that I would love to invite you all. I have a few free events that's coming up. So I'm going to be having a Boundaries for Business Health event next Monday from 12 to 1. I'll post the link in the comments. And then the other thing I want to say is put yourself out there. Don't be shy. Tell people your value and your worth. There just might be buyers out there. There just might be the next opportunity around the corner, and someone might just need to hear your voice or your message, and it could transform their life. So get up on stage, start speaking up. Don't be scared. Focus on the downhill. And I would love to see you in any of my free events. So I'll post my LinkedIn as well. If you follow on my LinkedIn, you'll get all of the links for my free events. I would love to invite you to Boundaries for Business Health on Monday. And I'll definitely make time for you next Thursday.
Cool. So Naquanda, please come back next Thursday. This is the tip I'm taking away from tonight. Focus on the downhill. You have to come back next Thursday because we need to find out about pizza. I need to find out about what happened with pizza when you were 15. So that's important.
With who?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Your bio starts about selling pizza when you were 15.
Oh, pizza.
Take it
Yes,
into it now.
yes.
Next week, come back next week, and we will find out from Yoka what pizza has to do with speaking up. We will find out. I'm having an event next Tuesday. I will also put into the chat or the comments. It is called Everything is Innovation, and it's designed for coaches and anybody else in the business of coaching, facilitating, speaking, and so on. So please join for that. Please join Yoka's event on Monday. That's Monday and Tuesday. You're busy already. And then next Thursday, you got to come back here. We are out of time. This has been Yoke van Dam, the Kenzugi Queen, along with me, Michael Lee of the Innotivity Institute for Innotivity Live. Speak up, say what you need to say. Please speak up and keep speaking up. See you next week.